And welcome to another episode of Redesigning Your Relationships podcast. I am your host, Giovanna Burgess White, with my co-host,
Yvette Valdenegro.
And today we have a very special guest on our show. She is going to be talking all things college. I love her pick, Get Educated, College Edition with Symone Flowers. So we're going to ask her questions and just really talk about what college life looks like in 2022. She's going to give us literally all the details on what's happening in her world. And hopefully this helps some parents with college kids, parents about to have college kids, college kids. So this episode's for you. You better listen, have it on replay, because she's going to drop some knowledge.
Okay, but before you welcome her in, I also want to give her a shout out because I know she's not going to brag about herself. She's not going to say the amazing things about herself, and I will on her behalf. Symone is a wonderful junior, kind of senior, going into her final year of school. So she's got a lot under her belt. She just came off of doing an internship. She's soon to be entering into the workforce. She does amazing at school. She gets good grades. She's always been on task, very driven. But the whole reason this even started is because she knows that we do this podcast and we always talk about relationships. And she said, what about for your listeners who are in college? That is a relationship and it's a whole thing. And then literally we're like, do you want to do this? And she said, absolutely. And she started saying stuff that we said, let's talk about it on the podcast. And so she came up with the whole Get Educated College Edition with Symone Flowers. So let's just bring her on, give her a round of applause.
Woo. Welcome. So I know you've listened and watched, but this is going to be fun. We're going to get educated on what's happening in your world. So welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me on. It took forever.
Well, it was perfect. So tell our viewers / listeners a little bit about you, where you go to school, so they can kind of get an idea of where you're at. And then let's talk. Let's get educated.
So I go to school at RPI, which for most people in the world, RPI means Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. I study biomedical engineering. I'm also doing a minor in philosophy, and also a minor in public health. Some stuff that I participate in, I'm on the club volleyball team. I work for RPI TV, which basically works with ESPN to record all the athletic events. I'm also a NESB, but that's just a little bit about myself. But yes, I will say, I do consider myself a pro Gen Zer, in my opinion. I feel like every one of my friends are always saying, Symone, you just seem like you have your life together. And I don't think so. I just think I portray myself as that. But I think at the end of the day, they see me walking the walk and not just talking the talk. I think that's the biggest thing it is, in my opinion.
I love that. So for people in college, parents that are listening that have kids in college, let's just start. Where do you want to start? What do you want to talk about? I know we did have some things that we're going to ask you, but what's your number one advice to college students right now, especially in the world that we're living in?
I definitely think for a lot of people my age, you have one of two problems. It's not having enough fun and then having too much fun. And I see both. And I would say for the people that are having too much fun, it's okay to have fun, but you have to take time and set out time to get your work stuff. Because if you want to play hard, you got to work hard. And then for the people who I think don't have fun enough, it's stepping out of stepping out of your comfort zone, doing something that you wouldn't usually expect to do, or really forcing yourself to explore new opportunities. I definitely would say with the aspect of having too much fun, it's again time management, hankering down, being super organized. In my biggest opinion, I think all my friends that I help, that they're Symone, I see you studying, you're always making time, yada, yada, yada. It's just teaching them those super important time management skills that I feel like a lot of people don't have, or they don't get trained on prior to college. It's so hard to adjust. And especially with COVID, There's so many adjustments already. So if you don't have time management skills already, it's hard to force yourself to be in the mindset of like, I need to get stuff done so I can go hang out with my friends on Saturday night.
May I ask a question, Symone? Where do you feel like, just like you didn't get taught that in school, right? So were you self-taught? Did you just pick it up? Where did you learn how to be a good manager of time?
I think it was more like I just would not allow myself, but I definitely dedicated time to getting stuff done. And I would tell myself, like, I have to do this in order to get a positive benefit or something. Like, if it's whether I have to do a 10-page paper, I'm like, okay, like, I know this is due next week, but I know that I'm gonna have a very busy week. So forcing myself to do 5 pages, and then I get a reward of like, okay, I can go get dinner with my friends. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a hard 5-page number. Like if I get 3.5, but I'm like, this was a really good 3.5. I know that I have a good flow. I know where I'm going. I'll, make those adjustments, be like, okay, like I have a good start and I know how to finish properly. But I would say like, I think it's something I taught myself, and I definitely think it's something I learned from sports of instead of using or having that schedule laid out for me, I think as an athlete, I had to train myself when I wanted to become a student and get an academic scholarship, teaching myself like, hey, instead of I'm like, work out 8 a.m. in the morning, then I practice during school, and then after school, it's like, okay, these are the specific time hours that I'm using to work on school, catch up on homework, do my projects so that I can go out.
That's what I liked about what you said is that you look at something, well, I'm assuming this is what you're saying. You look at something, instead of it being the 10-page paper, you break it down into like, I'm going to do this segment. I can be honest, when I was a college student, I would have never looked at that way. I seriously would have looked at the 10-page paper and gone, oh my God, because I would have thought, I'm going to sit here for 10 hours. Does anybody want to do that? No. But I like what you just said, because but let's condense it to what's okay for you, which someone else may say, well, let me break this up into 2 pages at a time, go work out, come back, another 2 pages, maybe watch a Netflix, come back. Like it's going to work for different people. But I like how you said you kind of took the scope and went, okay, let me just condense this. What is going to work for me? And then there's a reward at the end of it. So you're self-motivating yourself to keep going. Good tip.
I also think, so we talk a lot about having life-work balance because most people immerse themselves with work. And I feel like college kids, everyone's different, obviously, but college students just have almost kind of like a work, some have school, and some do life. And so the balance is a little bit harder because some people have to work to pay for school. Some people have to finish school, and then some people just want to party. And so I'm glad that you're bringing this up, because we're working with women in business that are 40 and up, and they don't know time management. They don't know scheduling. They don't even know how to really create a life balance. Everything's work. So it's good to have that instilled when you're in college. But I know you do a little, you're interning, you work, you have school. And I have always been the type of person too, that I prefer to get stuff done and reward myself, because then I can actually enjoy it versus going to do things and then you're like, oh, I got to go back and do this work. I actually can't stay out that late. So I can see where that's a struggle for kids who decide to just go do party, and then all of a sudden the work isn't done. We also talk about money a lot, and the world revolves around money and time and relationships. What are your thoughts around money, college? I want to hear a little bit about that.
This is such a big topic for me, or like I'm very passionate about this, because I feel like all college students know we're all struggling. And it is so hard to do stuff when you sometimes don't come from a family that's as fortunate as others, or it's hard. I definitely know, like I go to a private school. I'm constantly around friends who, their parents are fortunate enough to be able to pay for them to do like extracurriculars, and that's like a trip to New York City whenever they please. And it can be kind of challenging to not feel left out solely because you couldn't afford to go. Because it's not, oh, I didn't get invited. It's, I genuinely cannot afford to go on this because I don't have any money. I would definitely say, like, I know I struggled like freshman year. I wasn't able to have work study. So it's just, I was using anything I had in my savings to pay for like a quick trip to the city or anything like that. But I would definitely say, like, be very mindful of your money, and I would definitely put a budget. Like, I know I will, even now I still budget. Like, I would be like, okay, like I'm gonna set aside this specific amount and track and really stick to my budget so I know that if there's something really exciting coming up, I don't want to miss out on the opportunity just because I couldn't afford to go. I just feel like there's so much to life, especially outside of school, especially if you don't have a campus that has a lot of campus life. Going out and exploring is so important. So I definitely think I'm one of those people that's like, save your money. Like, a quick trip to Sonic is not worth, like 5 trips to Sonic, that adds up. Like, you could have went and did a day trip somewhere to the bus. I know I'm always constantly, I would say this, if you're a college student, you need to sign up for Uni Days. It's a website where you basically sign in with your school account and they will give you a list of all the places that you get with a discount. I am constantly, every single place I shop, I got Astros tickets the other day and there are student discount.
Nice.
And it's just like those little things too, is that you don't have to, there's also opportunities to try to find discounts, try to find deals where, you know, even like Groupons, that's definitely something that my friends have done. It saves you a lot of money. So definitely budget, definitely look for discounts, and definitely try to get as many people as you can so that you can get a Groupon to help save money for everyone.
Wow. Okay, Symone, I know I'm like listening to, I know you, obviously. You're adulting is what you're doing, but you're, in my mind, you're doing it great. I know I'm biased. But where, I mean, because I've seen you grow, but where do you, if someone's listening to you right now, I can only imagine like, oh yeah, okay, well, she's got her stuff together, really. Where would you guide someone, lead them? How did you learn? Like, how did you get to where you are right now with just even that thought processes of budgeting? Because that's not something that everybody learns at all.
Yeah. I would say with budgeting, I think I've always had that natural instinct, and I think it was something that, again, like, to be honest, I'm very, what's the word I want to say? I'm strict on my money just because I feel like I had an unhealthy relationship with money growing up, with money. So I feel like that's the reason why I'm so like trying to watch my coin. But I definitely think recently I've relaxed and I'm like, okay, Symone, like, yes, having an extra $200-$300 would be nice, but being able to go see my best friends in the city for a birthday weekend is so important, and those are experiences and memories I won't forget. So I would definitely say, like, if you are somebody who is like me and you're on the spectrum of I used to always watch my cash and now I need to relax, you gotta relax. It's like the same thing with college. Like, I know if I've been studying for more than 5 hours, I literally like, I can't. Because it comes to a point where you just have to stop because you're not actually learning anything. You're just making yourself more stressed out than you need to be. So I would say don't stress out. If it's $100, $200, like, as long as you're not negative, live your life. This is honestly the point where you can try to explore. You can be slightly reckless and be able to still bounce back. And if you're on the spectrum of you spend too much money and you need to cut back, I think that's more where the budgeting is going to help, and kind of like saying, okay, honestly, I have two bank accounts, and I'll have one as my play money and one as my, no one touches this. This is something that I keep, like car breakdown, something really, if I have to go to a hospital and have an emergency payment, like, that's stuff that I keep separate. So I think definitely having like 2 separate accounts, so it's a lot easier to track how much you're spending and you don't overdraft from if you keep your money all in one account and you're just like, oh, it's all mental math. No, if you have it separate, you can't even touch it. You can't play with it.
Oh, that's so smart. That's really good too, because you can have everything on your other account automated, so you're not even having to worry making payments, or like if you're having stuff shipped from Amazon for school, like it just makes it like that account. You can't go back. You can't be reckless in that account. I love that. It's almost like I feel like my kids aren't in college yet, but I'm going to be down this road in a few years. It's almost like they need like other things to plan for in college. I like what you said about how the university has those things, but it's almost like before you even go, you should be looking at that like the summer before, like how much money should I be budgeting a semester for experiences, for if it's a small college going into the city, because as parents, we don't know that. As students, you don't know that. And then that also gives it's a reality of, okay, well, we're going to either need to give our kids more money, or you're going to have to work a little bit more that summer. Because I know a lot of college kids will work the summer before they go. And then next thing you know, the first semester, all their money's gone. And they're only, working part-time if they can find a job in a college town. Because I know that's also really hard when it's just a smaller town and everyone's kind of competing for the workforce. So it's got me thinking you should do like a little guide, like a little tip or guy, like summer before you go to school, like things that you should be preparing for. Now that you're going to go into your senior year, right? Senior?
Yes, I'm going to be senior.
What would you tell your freshman self now? Something that you're like, oh, I wish I would have told myself this.
Oh my gosh. Definitely could have spent more money. I feel like as a freshman, I'm just living in a dorm. I don't have a car. I'm just eating dining hall food. I think I should have done more activities off campus. I definitely think that's something, because there's always going to be campus events. There's not always going to be those things that if there's a special pop-up event that's like in a city that's like 20 minutes away, that's stuff that's not always going to be there. Because every year it's the same stuff every year. And yes, you do the fun freshman things, but there's definitely a lot of activities I feel like I missed out on because I was like, oh, but there's this campus event, which ended up being not as fun as I wanted it to be. What else would I tell myself? I think I really would have pushed for a work study job. I got work study, but then I didn't submit one paper and I got waitlisted and I basically didn't get work study. If I had work study, I probably would have been able to have more flexibility to not be so money conscientious.
What's work study? Because I don't know what that means. You're using
work study is, actually there's something else that we said earlier that I was like, I should explain this. So when I say like go to the city, I mean New York City, because it's a train ride away for me. So work study is basically if you meet a certain requirement for your financial aid package, you can qualify for work study. I'm pretty sure it's included under your FAFSA, and that's how you qualify for it. But essentially you apply through FAFSA, your school will approve it, or you get approved through FAFSA, then your school will approve it. And basically it offers you a scholarship of, actually the amount will vary, but then you can also work on campus. So it's like a campus job that basically, because you meet certain requirements, they have to give you. But there's only so many positions available. So I definitely know some schools have a lot of positions, some don't. So if you are listening out there, always make sure you're on top of your work study. It's so important, especially since a lot of the jobs, you just sit there and do homework anyways. So you're just getting paid to do your homework. And you're just sitting there like someone, yeah.
That's ideal. Yes, everybody do the work study thing. Okay, I like that.
Hey, Symone, what about like relationships as far as friends? You went from Texas all the way to New York. That's a very common thing for people to go to school. They don't know anybody. So what would you tell you now? What would you tell yourself as a freshman just about the whole meeting new people, new roommates, classes, everything?
I will say the first month to 2 months of freshman activities, I would say you should be required to go. Everyone should make a true point to attend those events, because that's when people are still meeting people and friendships are just now being developed, and it's a lot easier to enter a friend group. At some schools, and I will say at my school, sometimes it can be a little too cliquey. So if, it's harder to make those friends, but I will say I love and have a lot of friends out of my clubs that I'm in. I definitely I would say once a month for volleyball, we were having what we call mixers, where basically it's a huge party where both men's and women's team get to hang out outside of practice, and we're dancing, playing games. It was just a lot of fun. And then RPI TV that I'm in, we're spending a lot of hours prepping before the game, during the game, after the game breakdown. So there's a lot of time we're spending having dinner together, and that just gives you more opportunities to meet people and really create meaningful relationships. And it's about stuff you're already interested in. So that's the best part about clubs, is that you're meeting people that want to do the same thing and are passionate about the same thing that you are.
Oh, I love that, because that will relate back to business. When you get into the workforce, depending on where you're working, you're gonna have to go network. And networking is like having clubs. I'm saying that like I went to college, but I'm guessing that's what it is. You go to meet different people in different places. And that's really hard for people to do after they go to college and they study and never go play. And then they go to work, and then they're like, oh, and now you got to go meet people. And they're like, what? They didn't teach me how to do that in college. So lessons that we've learned: time management, calendar integrity is not being taught, money management not being taught, how to network not being taught. And funny story, we're doing all of those classes as adults. So we are getting, I hope everyone's listening to this. We're going to say this to our clients too, because this is important. If you don't learn it then, it's going to be a lot harder to learn it now. It's like learning in a second language. If you don't learn it when you're young, good luck learning it when you're older.
Okay. And you just brought up a really good point, Gio. So Symone, you were a freshman, or you were high school going to college across the country. Then you were a junior, senior going across the country again to go do an internship, right? So those are a lot of transitions. You're a new person in a work environment. So what was that like from really two perspectives? One, the college student perspective, and then two, you're in an industry where there aren't very, very many women. So relationally, what was that like?
I really like this question, because I definitely was just talking to my coworker prior to this podcast about, professors mention it. It's a comment during lecture about how there's a lack of women in engineering and the harassment that takes place. And it honestly depends on the professor. To be honest, I think I only hear women professors ever talking about any type of discrimination or harassment for women in STEM. And after being in the workforce, it's definitely very significant. And my school is 70% male, 30% female. I'm actually in the only major where there's more girls than guys. It's crazy. So, and it's even crazier because I do my concentration classes where they're electrical engineering, and I'm one of 5 girls. I would say I personally have an easier time being able to approach guys than most of my friends. So and even in classrooms or just in general, and even now in the workplace, I've had that comfortability because I have a lot of guy friends. But I definitely know if you've grown up and the majority of your friend groups have been girls, I know it'd be super difficult to have to adjust. And it's where are the girls? And it's plays a lot bigger in the sense of working with men is not necessarily difficult. It's the relating and being able to talk about topics. Because I know as soon as we got the coworker I was just mentioning, she came on a week or two after I started working, and instantly we're like, why is there so many men? And where are the girls at? And we need to stick together because it's going to be rough out here. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something to have to adjust to. And it definitely makes it a lot harder to be able to again, relate to, you know, certain aspects that we can't relate with. And if I can't ask my guy coworkers, hey, you want to go get your toes done? Or like, hey, let's join like a women's volleyball league. Or it's like, it's all basically having to be co-ed, I would have to say. And I think it makes it harder if you are somebody who gets along better with girls to be able to find friends in the workplace.
I can only imagine, was there ever a point where you or your coworker ever just talked about being alone and loneliness?
I definitely know she is someone, or after I left, or I'm working remotely for my company, just to give you guys some background. I was on site and now I'm working remotely in Houston. And I know an intern's about to leave, and she's like, I am worried about being the only girl in R&D, which is research and development. That's the department we're in at our company. So I definitely think that it is rough when you are the only girl. If there's a few girls, you guys really create that. I feel like it makes it better because you can make a bond, because you're like, you're the only other girl. I really want to get to know you, and hopefully you guys get along so you guys can be friends. But if you're the only girl, I think that's where you have the biggest difficulty, because I feel like you are alone. And not that men aren't great and they can't be great to work with or friends, but there's still that aspect of jokes and all the guys, and it's definitely like a, oh bro, like, oh, that's what she said. It gets old after a while.
Yeah. I gotta say, like, just looking at statistics, because we like statistics, but like the medical industry, law, business, you know, women are in the workforce almost as much as men, especially in the medical industry. But I wonder if that's why it's hard for women to be in your industry, because no one's really kind of broke that barrier, and it's still kind of uncomfortable, and no one's really talking about it. Do you feel that way? Because I know you've been doing this for school for the last couple of years, but I mean, have you ever met people like, oh, I would love to do that, but they just got discouraged and went a different route? Like they didn't even consider going down that route.
I will say the awareness of trying to get women in STEP has gotten better, but it has not been very high. And again, it's because of the culture too. I feel like my school that I go to has a lot of men who do not value my opinion as much, or have a presumption about me that I don't know what I'm talking about. And I straight up have had men yell at me because they thought that their opinion, and again, opinion, and I had the facts, was more significant than my facts that I had to explain to them. And I think that's honestly the biggest issue. Is it's in the moment, it's kind of hard to be like, you know what, like I'm not going to take crap from you. Like I'm sticking to what I want to say. And I feel like men have always had the upper leg and the upper, I know what I'm talking about. They have that confidence about them. And I feel like women already know that they have to fight. Like we're already going into the battle, whether it's to say that the hypothesis is wrong, whether it's fighting for leadership in a club. It's like we go in already knowing that we're going to have to fight because there's a presumption. And I feel like it's with the majority of men in STEM, unfortunately. And I think it's just the lack of understanding, and honestly, it's the communication, I feel like, that really frustrates women. And I know a lot of people and women I've worked with, it's more the communication, not what they're actually trying to say. It's how they're saying it, their tone. It's just, and I know men are always like, oh, you just need to have tougher, thicker skin. Well, no, you just need to not be annoying and an a-hole.
Yeah. The communication styles aren't taught. And so it's either their way or the highway. And that's also something that's not taught in business too. Like you need to learn, we talk about this all the time, but just not only your personality style, but the way you communicate and how to understand all the communication styles, and then how to understand and communicate with one another. So I'm glad we brought that up, because that's really important just in general with your industry, but just with the relationship, a freshman going into college may not even go into a minor or major they want to do because they don't feel like they can make a difference there, or they don't want to deal with what, they're hearing and listening to, which is really sad because, STEM can probably have a better outreach if there was more women doing it. So I think that's really important that you brought that up. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Well, and hopefully there's, whether it's coming, because we're talking, you just shared from high school to your experience now. Imagine the person who just graduated and is taking a new job, and then, or the woman who's hoping to get the promotion or whatever it is. I'm just hoping that there is business owners, men and women, that are out there that hear everything you just said, that are like, I probably need to do a better job at creating an environment within this company culture, or allowing equality, whether it's a male or female, to rise above or have a voice, to be heard in a professional, productive way. Or even having people come in and share what that means. Because everyone, if you think about it, I mean, you're from Houston, you may go to somewhere where you work and that person's from, I don't know, Oklahoma, 2 hours outside of a major city, and he grew up in a completely different way, right? He got up maybe going and taking care of the farm details before he even went to school, right? That's a whole different understanding of life than the life you can. Neither one of them's right, but it's really just understanding. So when you come into a group project, or you're working on something for the company, now he's taking his ideas, you're taking your ideas. It's like, well, we're both genius, wonderful people. We just have to understand how to communicate the right way to each other in order to really to benefit everybody. That's the greatest thing. It's like communication. The stronger you get in it, the more you learn about it. It just helps everyone around you.
Yeah, I'm writing some notes because I think we need to do a podcast on creating a culture in your business, even if you're a small business owner, because when you start growing, that's going to be even harder to do. Communication within your business, and also investing in growth for your team in your business. So I put this down, Yvette, so we can kind of do a series on that, because I think that's really important. Because if we don't start with it, we're never going to get to where we want to be. And then growth isn't going to happen. You're going to get stuck. Either the industry's not growing, the company's not growing, people aren't. I mean, we would hate for anything to not survive, or, an industry not to survive. Imagine if people stop being doctors, like that would be horrible, or stop being lawyers. Like I can only imagine, like, I don't even want to go down that road, but thank you for bringing that up. Anything else? I feel like we covered a lot, but is there anything else that we missed that you want to ask Symone? I mean, we talked about so many things, and we'll do a little recap and a little tips for kids in college, kids going to college, kids thinking about going from Texas to the north. I love it all.
Yeah. Or anything. It says get educated. So is there anything else you feel like you need to educate us with, Symone, before we hop off and say goodbye?
Well, to your point of saying you wrote down and you were like, oh, you know what? Like, we need to have an episode about communication and creating those healthy work environments. And I hear from back to the topic of working with men, I hear from a lot of men that they'd rather just be neutral and passive about situations like this. Because I have a lot of conversations with men that I'm like, if you know about our struggles, why aren't you backing us up when you know that we're having to fight a harder fight than you are to get our opinions out there? And it's, oh, well, I don't want to step in, or like, oh, it's not my place. And I'm like, but you being passive is you not encouraging the opposite side to not continue to devalue our opinion. Because you have to say something.
Yeah.
And I hear all the time, and people are like, change. No, it's true. I mean, in every aspect, it's everyone's like, oh yeah, I want to do, like, oh, let's fix this, let's fix that. But I'm like, okay, so what are you doing? Like, when the moment comes, why aren't you saying something? Why aren't you standing up? Like, and this is what being a true ally means. And so I think my biggest thing, and what I would really hope, is for the men who are especially the white men in the industry, who are the majority by a significant amount, it's being one of those people that are like, I'm going to be an ally, because I might not know how hard that person might be going, if they haven't been able to get opinion, if they're not being promoted when they should, even though they meet all the responsibilities and go above and beyond. It's like you have to be an ally. You can't just sit back and watch. If you have this power, use the power for good. I think that's my biggest pet peeve is if you want something done, do it. Stand up. Don't just say, oh, like I got your back from afar.
Yeah. I love that. And if we don't, we're gonna find the person, a male that's in this industry that's that's fixing these problems. And if there's not someone that if we can't find this person, then that's gonna help. We're gonna raise up to the challenge and figure out why, and we're gonna find that person, especially since we network a lot. Because I think that's not just with college. That in your industry, I would think a majority of corporate businesses that are men led. Again, they don't know what they don't know, and I'm sure there's a lot of men out there, like you said, who want to help, they just don't know how to. And that's, again, when I go back to investing in your teams and investing in your companies, and like, okay, yeah, we can have an awesome marketing class, but like, hey, let's think differently. Like, what kind of class do you really need? And I'm all about that. I'm all about advocating for women. And thank you. This has been great. I'm like, oh, I have so many things that I just we'll do a follow-up too. We want to hear how your senior year goes. And I know you have some surprises coming up too. So I'll do a little plug because I know you're going to have your podcast starting in the next few months. So we'll promote it on our end. And thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing and educating us today.
Yeah, thank you, Symone.
Of course, I'm so excited to do this. It's actually really funny because instead of being in the background accidentally making like a noise, it's like now I'm in it, and now I'm like, I can't believe someone just made a noise in the background.
Now you know.
Oh wait, Symone, do you either A, want to close us out, or B, would you like to say bye?
No, you could do it. Like, remember I was telling you, so you talk about something and you're going on and on, but I guess you don't have to do that. But I will say, I've had so much fun. You guys are great. I guess maybe we can do this biannually.
I love it. Well, thank you for coming. I'm going to take her off because I do need to do a couple plugs before we leave, because this is our August episode. So thank you for being on. And oh my God, that was great. I'm so glad we did this. See, this is what happens when people are like, oh, you should script all your things. And I'm like, no, we're doing this is real and raw. We've been doing real and raw for 4 years. I love having a whole completely different point of view from a completely different generation. And I think we have 3 other episodes here that we can bring guests on, or if we don't find them, we'll get some statistics and try to find these people in our world because we need them. So,
oh my gosh, and kudos to Symone, because she went with us last night to network in a women's business and self group, and I had a really good time. So I mean, I always say as a mom, it's like amazing just to watch your children grow up, but she's actually walking the walk. She didn't know anybody there last night except for you and I.
Yeah.
And she just met 8 other amazing people she would have never known. And you never know what those relationships are going to lead to in the future. So kudos to her. But that was really great.
Educated these women in so many different things. I was happy with the whole outcome. Well, I'm so excited to even say that for August, we're being sponsored. We have double sponsorship in August. So if you are thinking about, man, do I need to do a podcast? Like, should I be doing a podcast? The answer is yes. Absolutely. We had our podcast manager, Haley Murch, on. We'll have all her information in the show notes again. But the time is now. Like, stop waiting. Stop going, oh, when I have more time. Like, Yvette and I have been doing this every single week for 4 years. We bring amazing content. We go live and then we use it and we go into our podcast platforms. Haley Murch is sponsoring our episodes for the month of August. If you want more information, we will get all of that stuff to you in the show notes. Click to book a consult with her. She can really just tell you why it's so important to have a podcast. I think it really is for everyone. And I promise you can go back to our very first one over 4 years ago and now. And it's
no, don't go do that.
Well, it's game changing. And I am super thankful that we didn't stop and that we have this, because we need people almost every single day. And there's still podcasts that we're like, okay, there's another 3 that we're going to do now. And we're here to connect and serve you. And so whatever it is that you need from us, let us know. We talk about everything relationships, whatever relationship is important to you. Even my son asked me the other day, are you going to do something about relationships with your dog? If we need to do relationship with pets, he thinks he's so funny. And I'm like, but it is, or he's right. It is a relationship. Some people.
Well, he's got an emotion.
Yes.
He has a behavior, and there's a connection. It's a relationship.
So whatever it is, relationship, we are here for you. Thank you again for watching us. If you're watching, we're live every Wednesday. If you're listening, it's a brand new episode every Friday. And until next week, bye.
Bye.